All right, welcome to the sixth and final leg of day 3 of Beast Crawl, the triumphant return of Oakland's longest running literary festival since 2012. We claim it. We can't really claim the year 2019, but we're gonna claim all the other years, including 2020. Damn it, I swear. So getting a little salty with my language there, but we have this the sixth and the final leg is we titled it the Pedestrian Press Memorial Open Mic, but we are opening with a special guest. We've had musical guests, but this particular series we're going to open with a storyteller who comes to us from the Oakland Afro Surrealist Writers Workshop, and we're so happy to be welcoming Gabriel Akata to the storytelling. And I think that's the story. I don't know the whole story, but I am going to hand the microphone over to Ellen McBarnett so she can explain exactly what the workshop is going to be sharing with us today. And we are all very, very much looking forward to it, Ellen. And go ahead and tell us a little bit about what it is you do and what it is the group does.
Yeah, thanks, Paul, and thanks for inviting us, making us welcome. Thanks for having this event. I've been enjoying hours of it here from my living room couch. Yeah, the Afro Surrealist Writers Workshop of Oakland. We are more than 5 years old. We are a group of writers and artists who work in the written page, so mostly graphic novelists, have been active for well over 5 years, and used to meet actually in the Berkeley Library, even though a good chunk of us are in Oakland. I myself am in Hayward, and we are published writers, we are editors, we have several prize winners, including a recent prize winner for the Nomadic Press Award for poets. Really exciting stuff. And what we do is we support each other. We meet right now during COVID, we were meeting once a week, though we did take a month of the summer off. During COVID, online, and supporting our life as writers. And so if you're wondering what Afro Surrealism is, if you haven't had a chance to, I recommend a great exhibit at the Oakland Museum that coincidentally is going on about Octavia Butler and about Afro Surrealism and Afrofuturism. The easiest description is Afro Surrealism is reimagining our past and present, and Afrofuturism is dreaming our future. So frankly, there are two sides of the same coin with the present in the middle. It's really exciting for me to be introducing you to this young writer. Sorry, Gabriel, I'm so much older than you. I get to say that. This young writer, he has completed his first novel and is working on his second. He's looking for a publisher, so those publishers and agents out here, pay attention. You're getting in on the ground floor. I've known Gabriel now for about a year, though we've never met in person, and have been reading his work with delight. He is here to share a little snippet, a little piece of his first novel. It is a young adult's Afrofuturist novel, and I'm going to hand it off to you because I'm almost too excited to say much more. Gabriel.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, this is going to be the first chapter of my first book, and it's an Afrofuturist novel, and it's called Daughter of Wind. So, I don't know, I guess without further ado, thank you, Ellen, for that introduction, and I can just get started. So this is Daughter of Wind, Chapter 1, 1,000 Faces. A young warrior stepped out into the twilight of twin moons, a chill north wind her only companion on the mountaintop. It rushed out of the empty sky to surround her, setting the long grasses whipping at her calves as if to urge her to go back. It rolled up her body and pulled the hood from the tight curls of her hair, unfurling the rest of the cloud-white cloak behind her with a snap. The warrior's soft brown eyes watched as the wind threw a new layer of dust over the gravestone at her feet. She knelt and brushed the dust away. The engraving beneath shone with a soft, reflected light. Hey, Mom, Inkiru whispered. The stone couldn't answer. Inkiru felt the slow burn of tears gathering at the silence, but a gentle southern breeze rushed to meet the northern wind, pulling at the cloak and the pin that kept it wrapped around her shoulders. Inkiru's fingers brushed the stone of the pin, and a feeling of peace returned. She sniffed as she sat back on her heels and drew Iku from his sheath. The stellite blade glinted in the moonlight, and Inkiru smiled softly at the sight of the pendulum blade of the Ida. She pressed a trigger in the hilt, causing it to expand into a 5-foot staff with a familiar purr, and her smile grew as it locked into place with a click that reverberated down the length of the weapon. I made some modifications. Inkiru maneuvered the weight of the staff sword with ease as she held up the spear tip she'd installed at the base. I had to redo his blade to keep him balanced, but I thought the spear was important because sometimes I can't get momentum for a solid strike. And she went on like that for a while, telling her mother about all the little tweaks she'd made to Iku before shifting to news about her training in general. I'm going to be just like you, she assured her mom, an Oyai, and I can protect people now that Unc has taught me how to fight. She backed it up slowly. She backed it up by showing her affricatas, the Ida's blade cutting through the air with ease and fluidity. She stumbled a bit when she talked about her grades in the academic classes, but she assured her mom that she would do better this upcoming school year, even though she wasn't sure she would, not without Decca's help to help her study. Then again, her sister wasn't that concerned with academics either. Decca got into Keda Academy, Kiru said, moving on. I know she probably told you already, though her sister rarely visited the graves. And Kira was sure she had her own way of talking to their mom, though. Dad doesn't want me to go when it's my turn. He suggested I go all the way to Aoina, but like, Kata is the best, and Decca will be there. Speaking of, she glanced at her watch when she noticed the sunlight had long since faded away, leaving only the soft purple glow of the red and blue moons. I should probably go before she starts to worry. I'll visit again soon. There was no answer except the battling winds, but she stood, comforted by the talk. She collapsed Iku and returned him to his sheath, the weight on her hip comforting and familiar. Then she turned towards the darkened forest and followed the path until she passed back under the twisted boughs of the baobab trees. The forest on this part of Tabundo Isle was old. The trees had grown so tall and wide, the light rarely reached the forest floor. That left plenty of space and very low undergrowth between the massive trunks, and walking here felt like walking through an ancient temple. Not that she'd ever been to a temple, just seen them on vidscreen, but she imagined it'd be just like this, all quiet and solemn, like the world itself had slowed down in this one place so that people could, well, she didn't really get what people did in temples, speak to gods or something. Still, her imagination filled in dreams of ancient gods and magic and power in place of any knowledge. At least it did for a while, and then she got bored. So she used the opportunity to train. She pulled down her goggles, broke into a run, and activated her ka, smiling as energy all her own rushed through her body like a chill caught from a draft, pushing her to go farther, further, faster. Wind whipped her skin as she sped up, and for a moment, she wished she had Decca's power to keep warm, even from the deepest cold. But her ka was healing her so quickly, even her ears didn't have time to ache. And she soon forgot about the chill and just reveled in her own power. The slightest push off the ground sent her flying towards the trunk of a tree. She hit feet first and pushed off towards the next with a smile, skipping from trunk to trunk, making a game of not touching the ground. She almost felt like she was flying as she tried to land and launch with precision, from trunk to branch to rock to trunk. She missed and went flying past the tree, crashing through branches that rained cola nuts on her head and landing in a small clearing. Ow, she moaned, standing up and brushing the leaves and nuts off. It hadn't hurt that much. She wasn't protected by the strongest ka shield in the nations, but it was more than strong enough to keep her from getting hurt by a tree, even if she had been running at that tree as fast as a car. Still, it took her ka a moment to heal her, and she bent over to watch the purple bruises on her knees fade back into her usual dark brown color. All fixed, she thought, as she held up a hand and smiled as even the minor cuts faded away. How did people with weak kas even function? A soft growl reminded her, not well. And Kiru spun and met the malevolent glowing red eyes of an Afro. Her breath stilled, and something deep within her hummed with recognition at the demon as the demon stepped into the moonlight of the clearing. Like all of its kind, the Afro was a twisted version of an animal, in this case, a jackal, but it was much larger than any real jackal, with powerful hind legs that could launch it across the clearing in seconds and clawed hands where paws should be. The Jekyll Afro padded towards her, his thick black fur shaking with each step, and it almost seemed to smile as his jaw hung open, revealing a row of gleaming white teeth as long as her palm. It was no doubt relishing the thought of feasting on her. No one knew if the Afro fed on flesh or fed on emotion and the flesh just came as a side dish. But either way, Nkiru wasn't about to get eaten. Her heart ramped back up as she prepared to run. Then the sounds of distant yelling filtered through the trees. The Afro turned its head towards the Quay compound, and its smile grew. Their unbridled anger must have drawn it out of the deep woods. The Quays knew better than to wallow in such negative emotions. Everyone on Tabundo did. But everyone also had bad days, and they relied on each other to stay safe. Granted, that usually meant a full adult Oyai, but none were here, and no one was expecting an Afro to be wandering around Tabundo, so it was Nkiru's responsibility to protect her neighbors. And this Afro was small. She could take down a small one, right? Calm returned as Nkiru stepped between the demon and the compound. She could do this. She had to. It's what her mother would do. Don't think so, Nkiru said, focusing the demon's attention back on her as she drew Iku. Yes, she could do the Jekyll lunge before she was ready. She jumped aside, Ka lending her speed, leaving only air for the Jekyll's jaws to rip through as they snapped shut. It turned and was on her almost before she found her feet. She stumbled away, jumped over the Jekyll's arm as his claws rent the space she'd been standing in and landed in the knee-high grass. The Jekyll turned, meeting her eyes as she brought her sword back to her center line. She wondered if it could think. Maybe it couldn't, but she needed to. She circled, putting her back to a tree. It growled and lunged a third time. She flashed moonlight in its eyes before backflipping onto the tree trunk just as the Jekyll slammed into it, jaws first. Their combined force rained cola nuts down on the Jekyll, more than she thought one tree could hold, and as she leapt for the ground. The Jekyll snapped at the nuts in confusion as Nkiru turned, gathered her Ka, and lanced forward, spearing the creature's heart, or whatever it had in its chest. The Jekyll gasped, an oddly human expression of shock, before it slumped to the ground, bleeding shadows into the softly waving grass as Nkiru pulled her sword free. Only as his jaw sprawled open did she see the end of her cloak fall out of the demon's mouth. If she hadn't finished it, it surely would have pulled her in and drained her Ka. And without her Ka to protect her, it would have killed her. Her hand shook, still clasped around Iku's hilt. She could almost hear Deka yelling at her for being foolish enough to fight an Afro when she'd already been using her Ka all night. But she steadied her hand and sheathed Iku. She'd won, and the Quays were safe, at least for now. Her sister would understand. She wanted to protect people too, and Nkiru couldn't wait to tell her about this fight. The Jekyll had almost completely dissipated into smoky ash when she kicked through the grass looking for something to prove her kill of Deka. She smiled when the tip of her boot turned over a tooth. After this young rarely left behind bones. She picked it up, tucked it into her pocket, and turned towards home. And gonna pause there. So yeah, not sure what comes next of like reactions or questions or just go on to the open, but yeah.
well, then I will ask everybody in the room to please unmute themselves and please give Gabriel a big round of applause, everyone. And thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Really like having the Afro Surrealist represented here as we close out the final leg of the festival. And we are definitely looking to have you guys be major curators for us going into the future. So it's thank you so much for reaching out and doing that. So okay, we are going on to the J DeSalvo Pedestrian Press Open Mic. I want to make this clear to everybody so people know that this is not people are going to read on it, and there are people who are going to read some things for Jay. That's going to be done tonight. But this open mic is always going to be named after Jay moving forward. And the stuff you read tonight does not have to memorialize him as a person per se. He would be more than happy to have people read whatever the heck they wanted, because that's what Jay was all about for sure. So give me just a moment and I will get the list. I will post the reading list on the chat screen. I'll read it off real quick after I do that. Just a moment. There is the list. The numerology might be a little off, but what we have leading us off will be Richard Warringer, then Sean Labradori Manzano, Elin Alexander, Sandra Wassily, Shem Korngold, Jack Barnell, Ellen McBarnett, Garrett Murphy, K.R. Morrison, Joyce Young, Randall McNair, Keith Mark Gabry, Finn Bell, and to Elemental the Poet. That is the lineup as it stands now. If there are other folks who want to read, make sure that you get me in the chat screen. And the chats build up, they stack up really fast. So if you don't hear me respond, shoot me again if I haven't responded to you and got you and been able to get you. I only have a couple of spots, but I think some folks might not make it tonight. It's distinctly possible. So there will be some slots, I think, available. So with no further ado, the first person up on the list, I can see Christina adding. So we're going to add Christina. The first name I see on the list that we're going to read, and he requested, he wanted to be the first one to go. He's when I started doing the test run and creating this list, and I'd never done a Google form before, and I set this up, he was the guy's all like, I want to be the guinea pig. Let me sign up for that one. So he has been great. He has been such a huge contributor. Maybe we'll suck him into being one of the main organizers of the Beast. Please give a big hand for Richard Loringer.
I heard that.
You were meant to hear it. You were meant to hear it, dude.
I know you were. Hi, everybody. Actually, I said I just want to make sure to read a poem for Jay because I didn't have a chance to. And there's a who here remembers who knew J DeSalvo? Maybe you could. Yeah. So yeah, and there's the last issue of Be About It Press had poetry for Jay in it, but I didn't know it was being published, so I wanted to share this at least once. So that's all. It's just I'm going to read the one poem that I wrote for J DeSalvo. Jay sent me a copy last December or January of a novel he was working on with a sort of a letter, like almost like a foreword, but I'm not sure which it was. Doesn't matter. But this says a sentence, epigraph that's a sentence that he had written in explanation of part of his novel, and it's something that he and I shared. So a perspective, let's call it. And the thing that he'd written was, I don't believe in the idea of a static self, actually, other than as a self-perpetuating delusion. J DeSalvo. And I also don't, do the self thing, I suppose. It doesn't make any sense. Didn't make sense to either of us. So, but this is I reference that in here. In your shoes, J DeSalvo. I know your non-self scattered across plazas, drifting through traffic, squatting on sidewalks, so many pigeons in a flock of air. I know your nonsense in that shim of an eye, crook of an arm, swollen hands drifting. Thrumming or flailing, street corners came to you looking for answers. And you'd laugh like hail, serious eye sliding on an elevated rail. I know your non-nothingness, like a wisp of fist grabbing for coffee or a 2-ton drink. The night we met, you were trying to fill yourself with nothing, face torn and blinkered, and I wanted to punch your lights for all that fortified blight. God damn, your non-self could piss people off, but mostly when it was trying to de-self the self that wasn't there, instead of just being everywhere. But that mind, you fucker, incisive, shining, tossed about in a broken can, slicing life into salient flecks of has to be and what the fuck, while your tornado heart sucked everyone to the eye. When you died, I wanted to punch all the lights. Where are we now in this twilight town burning with neon and fog? Rolling up telegraph, a styrofoam cup yells, where are the cigarettes? Where's the booze? Where's the coffee with the dirty spoon? Here's a blast of live music from a fast open door. And there are those shoes, beat, sure strung, scuffed, and like the rest of you, so very lived in, but somehow always with panache, stepping out into the night. For J DeSalvo. Thanks, everyone. Just wanted to share that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Richard. That was lovely, 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 lovely. Yeah, it's that we've lost a lot of people really close to us. Jay was a hard hit for a lot of people in this room, a lot of people in this community. And it's a little overwhelming sometimes when you think about what a close loss that was. So thank you. We will continue on down the list. I got the numerology right. So on deck, coming up, not now, but coming up after the person who's reading now is Elin Alexander. Right now, up to that, we have Sean Labradori Manzano. Sean, what have you got for us tonight?
Hi. So while here on the farm, I've also been reading Satanic Verses by Salman Rushdie. And so I decided, whoa, sorry.
Looking good, bud. Looking good. No. Let's go with that.
No. It's that my screen went full screen of me, and that kind of surprised me. So I'm putting it back to gallery. It just looks too weird. So I decided to write a guzzle because of reading that book, which is banned here in the Philippines, but I brought it anyways. So this is a guzzle for two of my fathers. Father, forgive me, return to you in whiteness was never my choice, debt and duty to whiteness. My behalf, have you intervened? Divorce defeats, Master Chief awards, mother's ambition, whiteness. And yet the first lesson I can never recall, spar before class, kill shots to disable whiteness. If only you taught how to hold on to marriage, would I now not admit illusions of whiteness? Lines of jungle gym sand, practice weaker allies worth losing, bigger threat, predatorial whiteness. Third graders, yellow fever for sister, lust, not love, anime or fuck city maxims, whiteness, seeds vigilant opportunity when deployed, scores manhood, walang hiya, submit to whiteness. How did you know I would be challenged, your belt or my fist? Did you warn mother, children of whiteness inherit the spoils of empire, we can rise above, or like mother, consumed by the lack of whiteness? She would never believe the open hand defeats deviated daughter's honor against whiteness. Middle school squad echoes, mortify eighth grader. Only you would praise my defiance to whiteness. Mother denies these battles, fictions she believes. I've rebelled against honorary whiteness. But you, my father, prepared me for their caprice. How have I struggled against coveting whiteness, but sharing in the blame? You promised an 18th birthday, Honolulu's hubba hubba whiteness, divining pole, seat to stage, dollar bills, slip thong. How much for private dance, son had aged to whiteness. I celebrated with you, flew to Oahu, Hotel Street, retraced our steps, surveying whiteness. There was none, the club shuddered. My consolation, Mongo Bean and Ampalaya, endures whiteness. A mother's gaze for porn and pageantry. Would you have instructed better how to fulfill whiteness? How did you celebrate boot camp graduation? San Diego red light, paycheck equals whiteness? Could you have imagined the paleness of my wives, that your lessons were unnecessary? Whiteness need not apply, but mother made sure your desire inculcates as much hers, the flesh matters, whiteness. Walang Ilocos, walang Tagalog, walang patty mouth and accent prevails, only whiteness. What is a collaborative effort backfired, but I see in the second chance children, whiteness, not as organic, but removed from the sun. What have you conjured, I misbegotten whiteness? Visiting forces agree, semi-permanent presence avails every Filipina. Whiteness, dermatologists would like to know your ideal epistemic skin tone, vindicating whiteness. Nanay, I share the bench, I understand long hair. Lalaki should not have, Pusod resists whiteness. How can I repair my soul? When the words are lost, aksubliak pai, but there's no home from whiteness. What made you believe you can subdue a woman's devotion more pure than Sampagita? Whiteness. Did you prepare for wars? Hubik Bay foreshadow your boot camp shipmates, not the mirror of whiteness and the journey to the Golden Gate. Become most loyal colonial cabin boy serves whiteness. White pension, white voting privileges, resent still white divorce, sublimate appetite for whiteness. Despite acuity, how close antagonists are friendly, I will never inhabit whiteness, except imperial grammar, slippage exceeds citizenship, gamble heritage for whiteness, when archipelagan consulate not advise birth abroad secure certificate of whiteness. Would you applaud my marriages, failures without archipelagan blessings, scorch the sun, their whiteness, an enduring test more than a successful pot of rice, lift these nails forged by my any hands, perforates whiteness. For every enviable, for every thought, for every web search, for every clinging whiteness, for hyphenation, for italicization, for exotic white maintenance, still whiteness. For miming the Castilian Codex subverts nucleated allegiance, blinded slams, whiteness, such as the Great White Fleet, cannon and cannonade, missile and missile, witness subdued by whiteness, collaborated with mother and accent prevents assimilation. Are you steward of her whiteness? A sick American am I, ibang mata. I shall not have any other tongue but whiteness. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Beast Crawl, and for hosting and for welcoming me from 14 hours away.
Thank you, neighbor. Thank you, my neighbor who is 14 hours away. For those of you who don't get that reference, when Sean's not in the Philippines, he lives across the street from me. So that's, and I can't
My
escape.
beer buddy.
Yeah, when Sean says guzzle, I don't think of poetry. I think of beer. That's usually what comes to mind. That was boy, that joke was served up rather a little bit too easily. Okay, let's get on it. Thank you, Sean. You was fantastic, and it's great having you read on both ends of the mic. I'm hoping you're curating for this before too long. On deck in the open mic is taking practice swings is Sandra Wassily. Now coming up to bat in the open mic is a poet who helped really kick this festival off yesterday by taking a blowtorch to the room. Please give a big hand for E. Lynn Alexander.
Hi, everybody. Wow. I'm glad that Jay's part of the Beast this year. I know we all have memories of Jay, and was thinking about at one of the Naked Bulb events, everything was kind of winding down and we were cleaning up, and I found so I found one of Jay's books in the grass somewhere. And I tried to give it back, and Jay was like, no, you keep it, you read it. And I just thought, like, just finding this, this book, like that was just so Jay, like, I don't know. So I'm glad that we're doing this, and good to see everybody. Okay. I am being replaced, board by board. I become the building that I wasn't. I am down to the studs of what I was. I have holes rough and wound-toothed. I have holes from where the screws used to be. There are spaces between me. I am beams, vertical, weight-bearing bones. Bare, I line the halls. I am witness. I inhabit and I hold what was. I inhabit and I hold up a house I do not own. There is no deed with any mention of me. There is no key. I am a skeleton holding up a body. I am underneath architecture. It isn't mine. The notion of a casement, a sill, a frame. There is an escape, but the weight is binding. I am being replaced board by board, becoming the building that I wasn't, board by board, beam by beam from my beginning when it ends with the last. I will be there in the prying. I will yield there in the pulling. I will be there and then I won't be snap, just like that. There will be no moment of knowing, of cease, of crossing over, no breaking into piece, and all of that in the severing, wood tilting, bowing, slight giving and splintering, then the splitting, the prying, the pulling, there for all of that. I will be there and then I won't be, just like that. I am being replaced board by board, beams from my beginning. I become this building that I wasn't. They say our cells die and are replaced every 7 years. In time, we become new varieties of persons that we weren't. 7 years, simultaneous deaths and birthings and becomings and emergence and sheddings and the buildings of somethings from nothing. Bit by bit, as board by board, cell by cell, we become the babies that we weren't. They say our cells replace us every 7 years. On they go, never knowing if they will be the last to be tasked with this configuration. Thank you very much.
Lynn, thank you very much. And for all of your support of the Beast. You're as big, you're somebody, if you didn't live so far away, you would of course be one of the core organizers of this thing, but you are also an organizer of your own things out there in Pennsylvania, but we always appreciate the support we get from across the wide land and from the Lehigh Valley. Thank you, Lynn. Right up on deck, taking practice swings, we have Shem Korngold. I'm so looking forward to what Shem's got to share with us. But taking her turn at the plate now, please give a big hand for Sandra Wasley.
Thank you. I will read 3 short poems, which are the only 3 poems I have written this August. And a lot of them reflect some aspect of JD. He certainly seems to come through in his non-static self. The first one, August 1st, what passes us by? The presence that persists in absence, as the solidity of moon reflects what is not seen. Soon the breach of sun on the curve of earth, pushing toward its crowning, dawn of life in the curve of vulva. The light so bright one sees no color, and shadow finding solidity to show itself. A presence perceived at graveside, the moving dark that heralds the hawk in flight, soon to be absent. A second poem, Brief Encounter, August 21st. Last night, an insect with large wings alighted, buzzing in front of me on the bulletin board, the back of a bookcase where I work. I trapped it with my empty mug, and it flew inside, but mired in the last drops of tea I did not consider. I slipped a napkin, absorbing wetness alongside the inner surface to the struggling bug as it crawled toward me onto the damp paper. I felt its strong desire to fly, its wings intact but heavy. I delivered the messenger to a dry bucket on the balcony. I do not know the name of the insect or its fate, but I note the bucket is empty this morning. And this I just wrote August 27th. It's called Brief Encounter 2. It's actually in memory of Frank Seuss, who was a writer laureate in Alaska. He died in a solo bicycle accident a couple of weeks ago. And I couldn't remember if I had met him. And then I remembered in a flash. Brief Encounter 2. The ocean is vast with what was once buried in the brain, now washed out to sea. Sometimes recalled in the stirring of a storm, a memory surfaces, its trigger unknown, unless the question asked, did I know him? Weaves its way through all that has been laid down since I met the writer laureate, and strikes upon a shining moment that says in his presence, visiting me this morning, a light dancing on waves. I witnessed writing that holds against the erosion of experience before it washes away. Thank you.
Gorgeous, Sandra. Thank you so much for that memory. You're right, and it's okay to memorialize other people too, right? I say,
Yeah.
for Frank Seuss. So I remember seeing the tributes to him when he passed, and you know, a lot of poets don't get super famous, but the community is wide and large, and so when you know, it's like in the union, a loss to one is a loss to us all, and there is the level that we recognize that, and I appreciate it. Thank you for sharing that, Sandra. All right, moving along the list, taking practice swings, and in the on deck circle is Jack Varnell, the emotion, he calls it socially distanced emotional orphan. I'm thinking of the emotionally distanced orphan. But coming up to bat now, taking his swings for us now. I'm so happy to have him here. So happy to have him contributing to the beast. Please welcome Shem Korngold. Shem, what have you got for us tonight?
Hi, thank you. I haven't been able to write anything for the past 6 months, but this morning I wrote a first draft of something that I will share, and it doesn't have a title yet. Even bruised and battered, aura still keeps glowing like hot chip-dipped fingertips. Evidence never so easily scrubbed clean away. It's a fuzzy Venn diagram, the overlap of self-neglect, self-indulgence, self-compassion. A burrito bomb, swelling belly bloat satisfies a diabetic soul's hunger, at least for a couple of hours. A nicotine hug somehow soothes an asthmatic breathing pumping apparatus, at least for a few minutes. And the sweet esophageal burn from an upturned bottle of discount supermarket bourbon still eases pain in any random dyspeptic ulcerous inner outer verse, at least for a few lifetimes. Still lets a soulfly voice echoed and amplified in the hollow caw of a big old black bird perched on what once served the purpose of holding up the wires connecting all the telephones, at least for a few eternities or so, it seems. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you, Shem. That was a great piece. All right. In the on deck circle is our other representative from the Oakland's Afro Surrealist Writers Workshop, Ellen McBarnett, taking practice swings right now, but up to bat is the social yet distanced Jack Varnell. Jack, what have you got for us tonight?
Hey guys, I have had a wonderful weekend. I want to thank you personally and Yusuf for all the hard work that you guys have done. It's just been stellar. The poets, the entertainment has just been heartwarming, overwhelming, inspiring, encouraging, and way more adjectives and shit than I know how to use. So I'm going to read a piece. I realized in looking for something to read today that I actually have a series that's related to this. I'm going to give a trigger warning. I don't know how appropriate it is, but at the end of the story, it's real appropriate. So I'd like to give that in advance in case you have particularly sensitive feelers as we go through this. It's called Silver Bullet Waiting. She was born with a quirk that makes her love to hate. She was born without a part of her brain that she says she needs, but what is normal anyway? Who the fuck needs that? Who's keeping score? She's a writer, you know. She names her notebook and pen Eros and Cupid. And she writes in it wearing rubber gloves, wearing her suit of armor that she claimed as the spoil of war. But there's a wall around her heart. It's 3 sizes too big, but the love seeps in anyway. Oh man, life is so unfair. There's not supposed to be any love, not super glued into those crevices, not with the ideas that haunt yet sustain. Those ideas about sharp points, sharp edges, Bic lighters, and the evil ones. Just like 4 thumbtacks, they bind to a picture of her past. They bind it to a wall around her heart as a reminder that it will never happen again because it will always be that way. Her weary teenage eyes seek praise and validation, and she rejects it, of course, because like masturbation, it's the only thing that truly gets her off without guilt. Her words like music, her thoughts and feelings like, well, thoughts and feelings. They invite critique, of course. Mysteriously flawed and bad logic mistaken for fact, and an unflappable ego defends, deters, and determines vampiric qualities. But she laughs at garlic and crosses until she falls asleep at daylight in the casket tomb that she calls her home behind the blackout curtains. And her adoring man, the mirror, he watches that peaceful face that she never sees. And it grows fuzzy until it disappears, but he keeps it locked in his head. He keeps it locked in his dreams. It's like a flower preserved, drying in between two sheets. She is a framed image, an etched image on panes of glass, glass that's ready to shatter, glass that opens to the world, glass that needs to be bulletproof to protect her from her etched image, the etched image of the silver bullet waiting. Thank you all. Thank you, Gay Harper.
Thank you, Jack Barnell, a man who manages to bring the dark side, but in that really heartful, soulful way that he does. And we appreciate it, Jack. Thank you. I'm going to post the rest of the remaining names on the open mic list. We've scheduled Avacha to close us out, and I can't think of anyone more appropriate to close us out. I think Avacha might have a prayer for us to close with, or whatever Avacha wants, quite honestly, because that's what an open mic is about, and that's what J DeSalvo would tell you that an open mic is about. So that means on deck, taking practice swings, the one and only, and so glad to have him back, Garrett Murphy. But up to bat now, please welcome from the Oakland Afro Surreal Writers Workshop, Ellen McBarnett.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm going in a slightly different direction because I'll be reading fiction, but I'm staying in that wonderful dark place that we find ourselves right now. Quickly, to give you a background, this is a excerpt from a much longer piece. It is about a shapeshifter who feeds off of human misery. And she has now had a child for the first time as a mother, and she is seeking to feed her child in Central Park. I guess a trigger warning would be helpful. So there you have it. As she and the child were hunting in Central Park one night, he interrupted her nostalgia to ask, "Mother, is it cruel to feed off intelligent beings in this way? Are we monsters?" She was touched by his sensitivity toward their fodder, so exquisitely deep for one so young, an old soul, her human coworkers would say. She answered, "No, of course not. They create their own misery, share it with those around them, and inflict it on those far away. We feed off of a small part of their energy, small chunks from their lives, like gardeners trimming bushes. But we kill them so often, at least I do. You will get better at this. You'll get to know when to stop. But why not their joy or their love? We can feed them too." Well, child, in the past we did. But human beings destroy what they love. We gave them fire and art and comfort. We were the first intelligent life on the planet, and we shared generously with the beings we bred and fed from. They worshiped us, sacrificed to us, then rose up against us. Remember the tales I told you of our ancients. If not for our strength, stealth, and empathy, we would have been lost to the sands, like the jungles of the Sahara. He laughed. "Those are myths, Mother. You're trying to frighten me. Humans are too weak and stupid to hurt us. Feeding off them seems almost unfair." She loved his laughter. She laughed back, but then said, "Heed me." And he did. That night, they found a couple lost in a heroin fog, hiding under dense bushes. Ramon drained the young man, leaving the corpse untouched in a pose of languid beauty, while Negrita siphoned from the other deeply, leaving him weak and choking on vomit. Not hungry herself, she stored the fodder to feed Ramon later that evening. The older man would survive to awaken 3 days later beside his lover's insect-ridden corpse. Ramon's appetite was becoming too great for her subterfuge. She found an alternative to satisfy them. She helped him form an identity suitable for the days, a young Black male, tall and slight. She arranged for his arrest for murder. Prison would be an ideal setting to feed such an appetite. It was a hard choice, letting her child go when she had so much to teach him, but there was always visiting days. She never missed a Saturday, taking the bus organized by the Sisters of Mercy for those with family behind bars. It took hours to get to Sing Sing and back on those old unheated school buses, but her husk's discomfort was not an issue. It was helpful that she could feed from other passengers on the way. One day, many years into this arrangement, a visit with Ramon alarmed her. An old woman who sat opposite Ramon's Puerto Rican cellmate in the visiting room stared at them. She knew that sense of recognition and it frightened her, especially with Ramon trapped behind bars. Do nothing, she told him silently. I will handle this. That is why she was in a brand new husk outside of Botanica's shop in Jamaica, Queens that February evening. A cold wind blew trash off the elevated tracks into the faces of shoppers below, while gray clouds competed with the dregs of the gray sunlight. She was glad to have chosen a beautiful face, clear skin and large, heavily lashed eyes. Beauty is disarming. With her black shiny hair tumbling in loose curls over the large gold hoops in her ears, Negrita looked like half the young woman on the street outside. Adios, she said sweetly in the tones of the Guatemalan countryside as she pushed in through the door and shook moisture from her coat. The shop was small and crowded with the accoutrement of Santeria, Catholic doodads, and many dozens of candles. Mysterious bottles of many sizes contained liquids, powders, and odd forms. The smell was strange and made her uneasy. She nodded politely at a young woman at the counter who glared at her. Her target, the old Puerto Rican woman from the prison, came out from behind a beaded curtain, already wearing a winter coat. Negrita smiled at them both. Estamos cerradas? Excuse me, I hope my pronunciation is correct. Cerradas? Snapped the young woman in the street Spanish of the neighborhood. No, that is not how we speak to customers, mija, said the proprietress in a gentler tone. Here, I will stay a few minutes longer, but you go. She motioned politely to a table and chair in front of a colorful wall of candles with small portraits of saints and spirits upon them. No, I came to pick you up. Dinner is ready and Alexa is coming home. The young woman whined in Spanish. Negrita wondered why this young woman was suspicious. Would she need to be taken care of too? Do as I say and take this to your father, the old woman replied in Spanish, bending low behind the counter and pushing her granddaughter aside. Negrita heard keys jingle and a door squeak. The old woman struggled to lift a dusty metal box and hand it to her granddaughter, who continued to complain as her grandmother pushed her gently toward the door. The young woman cast a final savage look at Negrita, but left. The old woman motioned again, and Negrita sat. The old woman stood at the door watching the young woman enter a car. Negrita heard the car start, die, then start again, then drive off. The old woman, a Santeria princess, walked the long way around the counter to sit opposite Negrita across the small table in silence. The gray winter sunlight pinked and then disappeared entirely. Shadows rose about them. The streetlights came on, casting sharp shapes across the old woman's face. Negrita sat still and patient in the near dark. The old woman sighed. Negrita smiled coldly. Can you read my fortune, bruja? Yes, said the old woman. We all die in the end, and killing me will not save him. I'll stop there.
Wow. That was so good. Thank you, Ellen. Fabulous. Well done. Really glad the Afro Surrealist workshop from Oakland joined us tonight. It just completes the whole sense of what we're trying to do here at Beast Crawl and what we're trying to do moving forward. I really appreciate that. Okay, taking practice swings on deck is K.R. Morrison. Now up to bat, very pleased to have him back tonight. Please welcome Mr. Garrett Murphy.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Got three pieces to read, and the first one is called Walking Tightrope. This walk is quite familiar to us, though not in the usual way. We have to keep watch of each step, walking on eggshells, just waiting to crack. Below could well be as shards of glass. Below could well be as some points and nails. The most visible ends could resemble spores or the harsh ends of violent thistles. All we know is that the rope must be tread with extreme caution or else we could be quite through. It comes to our mind that we've likely experienced it before, only then we were safe in the arena, all yet fearful and hoping for the success of the performer. Now, audience, performers, and participants are as one. We are all out on the tightrope, with still a long way to go before we reach the other side. CEOs and governors bleat quite merrily. How come our profits don't grow? Why can't we get them to flow? Of course, there's a reason why our profits don't grow. Our flunkies or C's now refuse to sprout. They have no appreciation for the feed we give them. Why, they forgot to worship us. That $7.25 don't come cheap, you know. Now they want at least 15 per hour yet. We have to call on our governors to remind and learn those unappreciables to be thankful for what they can get. Gee, can we help it if our feed is so minuscule that unemployed benefits sustain them better? God, we also desperately wish the day could come back once more when we were able to rule them for free. No arts allowed. We advocates of simple human decency and tradition are most in arms about this terrible phenomenon, which we thought we had finally vanquished with our focus upon business and science proper decency. Remember, the business of America is business, after all, but alas, this evil called the arts has despoiled our souls and conscience yet again. Blotches and graffiti all over our walls, photos and portraits and subjects not to be exposed to our simple moral traditional family values. Stories now abounding about singles and other undesirables and untouchable and intimables in our decent society. Our old garbage ranting being passed off as poetry or musical, and such disrespect for law and order and authority. Why, we would not be caught dead displaying anything but worship as such. Remember to worth them. That is our motto, with a touch of haze to boot. But the most asinine corruption of all our morality, and the one thing we decent moral traditional humans despise is all the movement, movement. So therefore, dear citizen, we must put a stop to all this drunkenness and anarchy, so please don't allow the artists in here. Oh no, you see, the arts are contagious, and now we are getting the urge. Pay no attention to our lowly stages. No, we mean we must pay attention and fast. We must vanquish its aberration before it takes over us all. So please don't fall for our above nonsense. And
Garrett, beautiful. Thank you so much. That is, we got your piece of the beast in. There's nobody who can unravel a movement like you, Garrett, and we always appreciate that about you. Thank you, sir. All right, taking practice swings in the on-deck circle. I'm so happy to see you here. The wonderful Joyce Young, now stepping up to the plate. She was the author of the book Cauldrons. Please welcome K.R. Morrison.
Hi, everybody. I have a very, very short one I wrote the night I found out Jay had passed. I wrote it for them, so I'm going to read that first. And then I have an oldie I haven't read in ages that I know Jay would have loved, and I wish I could have read it to them because I think he would have loved it. So, first one, no title. If you go, our pens will conjure you. We'll cry fire tears from the matches and gas cans you left in this glass box. If you go, painters, poets, drummers will summon you. We will create a world that's worthy of your restless, a poem nest that's genderless. If you go, this place will burn, die a little more. We will walk through the ashes, searching for one pedestrian poet lost. This is an old one. It was inspired by someone if Jay knew about her, we never got a chance to talk about it. Her Marian Holloway, the singer of the Insaints, an old Bay Area band who died of an overdose in the late 90s, heroin overdose. I found it today and I wanted to read it if it's okay. To the Insaint, a saint in her allegiance to artists rabid, ruthless in revolution by microphone, wild pen, or loud paint. To the Insaint, insane in her relentless wrestling with cemetery living, the civilized dead who nest inside burning churches, screaming for scripture that saves. To the Insaint, the bruised, back-patched street protector, policed and caged, his evicted street codes molested, murdered, arrested. To the Insaint who scratches the itch of same-sex lovers beyond society's sensible gender traditions. To the Insaint armed with courage and reason to rescue the queen hemmed inside his soul, or the brave butch boldly unleashing the honest man from her iron breast. To daddy's daughter, now a sex worker, her vandalized bedtime stories, trafficked by two-legged vagrants in her underpants. Anointed, ensainted, she runs her tribe. She proclaims in a man's insane language that it is her body, her dominion, not for free, always at a price. To the camping garbage can inhabitant who licks his wounds and swallows scraps from Google gutters and condominium curbs, haunted by family apartment fires. To the teenager who can't stop touching himself, to the gorilla hiding behind his great wall of shame. Without apology, I proclaim no need for your body to lie in sheets lonely. The mind and soul thrive when in threesomes with the body. They despise old-fashioned marriage and that thing those humans call monogamy. To the beaten with weathered knuckles and those weathered by fists, the pummeled Insaint who craves the taste of sour blood in stinging noses broken, in swollen gums that harbor savage words and feral, unspeakable secrets. To the sinner, disappointed in this world's repetition, who basks in dirty water baptisms, hungry for a wilderness God, for afterlives where mouths are stitched with pearls stolen by pirates, where eyes are cataracted by clouds made by ferocious angels, fallen. To all you Insaints waging war in a world captured by savage humans, I hear your fire from your glittering trenches. I wave your flag, and with every battle, I nourish my allegiance.
Wow, I haven't heard that one before. It was really good. Thank you, KR. Thank you. Always, you guys never fail to surprise. You always show up, you always surprise. We always appreciate that. Right on. Okay. Taking practice swings in the on deck circle, Randall McNair, who some of you might know as Randy Mack, but now coming up to bat, taking her hacks. Please give it up for Joyce Young. Joyce, what do you got for us tonight?
Let's see, I got a poem, one poem called Who Treasured You, and it's in honor of my mom. Who treasured you? I treasured you, I treasure you now. Not with illusion of white picket fence, not with blue skies and green grass, but with hard-won smiles, clicking heels on asphalt, red lipstick, cigarette hanging out of your mouth, eyes narrowed. Me seated on the floor between your knees, you wrangling my hair into braids with grease and patience. Me seated on a stool in the kitchen, looking fearfully at the hot combs sitting on the lit burner. Me knowing that the courage I needed not to flinch could save me from getting burned. Me sometimes lacking that courage when the heat seemed unbearable and inevitable. We were not touchy-feeling touchy-feely for most of our lives, yet we touched during our last years together. I combed and braided your hair, smoothed it on your head, held your hand. You liked to be touched, and I was overjoyed that you let me. Sometimes you would get mad at me when you no longer spoke. I'd see it in your eyes. That look that my brother and I knew well, that's enough. Stop now. Thank you.
Great stuff, Joyce. Really, really appreciate it. It's just, I'm just so glad we got to hear you read tonight. That means everything. Here is the rest of the open mic list. I'm going to post it in the chat screen so everybody can see it. So taking practice swings in the on deck circle is taking practice swings is Keith Mark Gabriel. So good to have you here, Keith. Now coming up to back, Randall McNair. Randall, what have you got for us tonight?
Thought I'd read you some poems from my forthcoming book of poetry called Last Call, which is book 3 in the Bar Poems series. The first poem I'm going to read you was named a winner at the 2020 Writers Digest Poetry Awards. It's called The Beer at the Swinging Door Saloon, and it was project from The Swan at Edgewater Park by Ruth L. Schwartz, which is a great poem. The beer at the Swinging Door Saloon isn't one of those warm, half-assed beers. Wouldn't be at home in some swanky uptown joint. Chooses the hefty confines of its frosty 30-ounce mug. Prefers the parched mouths of mechanics who pour it past their lips like gasoline into the great tanks of their guts. Swilling it with little bits of pretzel and steak. Fermentation of grain with bouquet of hops. While churchgoers walk by saying, "Look at those giant trunks." Beauty isn't the point here. Of course the beer is beautiful, but not like Faldrecker at 16, when his life stood before him like a chiseled god. No, more like Faldrecker at 47, drinking away his minutes in his dirty double wide. His wife and kid asleep in their comfy tract home all the way across town. The wife who doesn't know yet he is dying of liver cancer as she dreams of a better life. And she is peaceful at last, her shiny black hair, a sinewy night sky atop her satin pillowcase. And she loved him. She really did love him. That's the kind of beer this is. And that's the kind of book this is. The next poem I'd like to read you is called Bluebirds. There are 3 bluebirds outside my window singing some shit about global warming and the dearth of worms in these here parts. I remark to the table lamp that it is always the bluebird. They are a whiny lot. To which the nightstand remarks that I should keep my mouth shut. To which he adds his girlfriend is a bluebird. To which I remark, of course she is. To which the nightstand, also angry about all the beer I've spilled on his head, reaches out with a firm corner and knocks me out. This next one's called Roaches. Alone in a room staring, not out the window, not at the walls, but at the corners of walls, laughing out loud like someone who knows things. My wife called the neighbors for support. Then, seeing roaches where there were none, I dropped to a knee and beat the shit out of my nightstand. My socks and undershirts were unmolested, but the roaches scattered, and my nightstand and my knuckles had seen better days, and my wife and my neighbors were gap-mouthed and anxious. So I told them not to worry about the infestation at their feet, and I dropped down to my belly and beat the floor senseless. My wife has now left me, and the neighbors don't come around anymore. But my home and I have come to an understanding, and the roaches have finally seen the light. They've begun making small worships upon the altar of my headboard at night in reverence to the only deity more wildly out of control than they. And this last one is called At My Funeral. I want a girl to sing Van Morrison's Into the Mystic while playing the violin and dancing around my stiff corpse in a skimpy white bikini, stopping from time to time to sprinkle my cold, dead blue lips with whiskey straight from the bottle. Not my wife. I want my wife to sit in the front row and stew. That's what keeps the soil tilled. That's what keeps the world spinning. The stomping feet of widows finally realizing what they've lost. Thank you.
Randy, I would really love if you could drop a link to your book in the chat screen. That's I think some people would be interested in taking a look at that. And thank you for sharing that. There's, you know, you've got all the hard drinking, hard living stuff on the outside, but we can really feel that heart on the inside, and we appreciate that. All right, here we go. Getting back into the list. Okay, in the on deck circle, Finn Bell. So that means coming up to bat now is Keith Mark Gabry. Keith, what have you got for us today or tonight? It's nighttime now, isn't it?
Hi, yeah, thank you. So I wanted to read this chapbook that Jay brought into existence, basically. It's called Oakland, I'm Not Dead. And it came out last summer. Yeah, I mean, I was just telling Jay about it, that I wrote these poems, and then he wanted to publish it. And so, like, this book wouldn't be here without Jay. So, this is called, so they're kind of these surreal dialogue poems. And this is called Face Assault. Do you know why I'm here? This is an outrage. I was sitting on a park bench, and then a cop cuffed me without explanation. You're charged with face assault. I didn't hit anyone in the face. Face assault is assaulting an individual's face with your eyes. Is that why you remove my eyes from their sockets? Yes, my partner Penelope is grilling them next door. Penelope is known to throw in a little torture. Please stop. How about please don't be a bitch? I'm not a bitch. Is a bitch's story going to match your eyes' story? Hell yeah. We're part of the same body. You admit you're a bitch. Now, Mr. Bitch, according to this report, you stared at Grandma Clement for 27 minutes. Grandma Clement noticed after 1 minute. This adds up to, do you need a calculator to confirm my math? 26 minutes of face assault. I would like that calculator. Well, why is it you have a kinky thing for grandmas? I'm a married man. So what? I have a happy life. And Grandma Clement was having a happy day until you committed face assault on her. Am I looking at prison time? That's not up to me. Oh, did you hear that squeal? Yes, it was quite loud. Penelope is reaching the climax of her interrogation. If your eyes are smart, they'll testify against you in court. My eyes and my body are going to serve separate sentences? Your brain told your eyes to commit face assault. We could plop your brain in a cell and just toss your body out onto the street. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Keith. That is exactly the kind of poem that Jay loved. There's no question about it. That fits the sensibility, the kind of thing that he would groove on, that he would read himself to all of us in your honor, even. But it's, but you know, here you are, and he's not. And wow, boy, I just took a dark turn there. I'm sorry, everybody. I've been doing this a long time this weekend, but I'm getting close. We're getting close. Coming up to bat now is Finn Bell, who also goes by the name Tricia de Jesus Gutierrez. On deck, I show Elementual, the poet, but I don't know if Elementual is in the room. So if Elementual, the poet, is not in the room, that means the poet who's really on deck is Christina Deptula. And either way, it's fine. But Finn Bell, Tricia, what have you got for us tonight?
Hi there. I just want to share 2 poems. Good evening. This first one is it's basically an ekphrastic poem based on a artwork by a painter in the Philippines named Fernando Amarsola. And the painting is called Dalagang Bukid, which is a country girl. So I call this Panibagong Lakas. It starts with a Filipino children's nursery rhyme. Magtanim ay di biro, maghapon na kayuko, di naman makatayo, di naman makaupo. Dalagang Bukid. Did you sit for hours in the grip of the unforgiving heat, still, half your soul already immortalized, for eyes that would never comprehend how you smell and taste like the tender rice stalks planted lovingly in their muddy paddies? Do they understand how Palay also sits still, patient, golden to a twin golden sun at the peak of its ascent, waiting for its turn to come forth, life? Do they understand how knees bent, how spines hunched hour after hour so that they too can contemplate your country girl beauty? Could feel like they your toil by absorbing your bucolic earthy oil tints into their pale dayuhan skin. Halina, halina, mga kaliyag, tayo magsipag unat-unat. Magpanibago tayo ng lakas para sa araw ng bukas. Para sa araw ng bukas. Dalagang Bukid, you wear my mama's same benevolent Diwata face, her same merry dark eyes that always carried comfort of warmer climate in their gaze. Do you reserve that look for me to help me maneuver through senseless hate and judgment? Do you hold unflinching light in your eyes to sear fierce, undying love of Inang Bayan into my mind? Is your steady, brave gaze into a future yet to be seen courage, counsel for my own bruised soul? I look at this woman and all of Ginoong Amorsolo's resilient Filipina maidens, and in each one of them I find mother. I find motherland. I hear the old nursery rhyme refrain, the stagnant pasmin air suspended from your phantom lips into my ear. Halina, halina, mga kaliyag, tayo magsipag unat-unat. Magpanibago tayo ng lakas para sa araw ng bukas. Para sa araw ng bukas. Then this one is called Laurel. And I'm not so sure what this is about. But it's, I guess, a love poem, if you want to call it that. Yuck. But it does talk about a little bit about, or it hints at my love for Greek mythology, somewhere in there. So it's called Laurel. This pen wants to tell you all the things I am unable to. This pen wants to say that though I think things through to the point of painful and exacting, I also have a need for things to be just so. For this illusion you see before you to be perfect. This pen yearns to charm you, but I am not clever in the turmoil of my verbal first draft. I orchestrate the contortions of my words until they writhe and surrender to where I finally lay them down, coyly parted, so you can glimpse the allure of all their secret meaning. I write myself down again and again, sort out the muddled pieces, and I become arrayed in my own thoughts, deceptively linear and simple, tempting you to follow me into the unknown, elegant angles presented to fool the eye. I am hidden in plain sight, lines scratched out and rewritten, but the subterfuge of the pretty words that replace me divert you. This pen wants to tell you that sometimes I want to be left alone, but that doesn't mean that I do not look for you, that I don't look for you with ravenous eyes despite myself. It doesn't mean that I can prevent myself, and goddess help me, I try, from jotting down impossible scenarios where you lean over to kiss me in the pouring rain. This pen does not think to mention that I vowed to myself that I would never be the poet who wrote sappy, idiotic verses about love. You bring this side out in me, and I half resent you for it. Curse you all the way to Hades and back. Lover, Orpheus, lover, logophile, amor, aesthete, amor, Eurydice, amorette. At the end of the story, this pen wishes to turn me into the wolf daughter, stalking my prey and the hunt. I spring off the page and I emit the loudest howl. I chase after a teasing moon, not knowing where I am going, but my feet become sure as they feel their way in the darkness. I shriek in pure joy as my hair is caressed in passing by Daphne and her sister trees. Do you see my ink pool? Silver stream reflecting the stars. Shh, do not listen to your head. Shed your hesitation, old bearskin, and hear me bay. Do not think, my beautiful Apollo, do not think. Pursue me. Thank you.
Finbel, thank you. I think, and I may be wrong about this, but I don't think I had met you until this weekend, and you've come in twice. But you were great on Friday night. Tonight, you just knocked it out of the yard. Thank you so much, and it's great to get to know you. And check the comments. And check the comments from Sean Manzano, Sean Labradorian Manzano. There, he's a Binaloan who's out on the farm himself at the moment. In fact, he's been checking in with us from the farm out there. So he's had 8 reservations canceled at the National Museum. I feel so bad for the people in the Philippines right now with that quarantine. Oh my goodness. It is rough. It's a rough one out there. Okay, elemental poet, elemental all poet. Are you in the room? I don't think you are. And going once, going twice, gone. We are headed over to Christina Deptula, who now steps up to the plate to have what she shares with us, and on deck to close us out. I cannot ask for a better poet to close us out is Avacha. Christina, what have you got for us?
All right, I'm so happy to be here, and I have 2 more poems. Spontaneous Grace. At this moment, I experience the desire for spontaneous grace. For the rain that holds off until 10 minutes after your hike. For the extra 5 minutes a friend waits until your arrival. For the extra 20 miles your car somehow runs until the gas station. For the soft edges on the 2 metallic recliner. For the last 3 rays of the sunset. For the directions you look up at the one coffee house where the public computer actually gets Wi-Fi. For the reason why some business people stop and give change to a strange homeless person. For the reason why a receptionist smiles and lets you in too near closing time. For the reason why people share words of support and a few bucks to folks online without asking for proof first. For the mirror kind enough to break and shift your image in all the right ways. For the dandelion in the cracks that escapes the neighbor's weed whacker. For the train that waits for you. For the traffic cop who winks, just once, at the jaywalkers or the driver 10 or 15 miles over the limit. For the single parent whose garage sale customers tell him or her to keep the change. For the time your housemate who loves angry talk radio actually switches on music. For the gleam of a rainbow in the soap scum on your dishes. For the time when your mom actually doesn't open her mouth when there are still dirty dishes in your room. For the reason I still do favors for a friend everyone says could do more for herself. For home, for love and memories, for the grace notes at the end of the symphony, for the extras which get and keep us up in the morning, for spontaneous grace. Sandwich poem. Lettuce, olives, and hummus. I glance over the list of requested ingredients before spreading the garbanzo paste over the whole grain bread, perhaps too neatly for a customer in a hurry. Mayonnaise, tomatoes, and pesto. He orders the same every day, perhaps as an effort to reduce life's complexity, a suffocating variety present even in our deli kitchen. Some say he should try more experiences, branch out, but some regularity is needed to make experience possible. Peppers, mustard, and tuna. The woman's children gather anxiously around her, tugging at her pant legs and whining to go outside. As the last rays of sunlight waft in from the sliding glass doors, I can't say I blame them. Cheddar, mayo, and lettuce. She watches me work and requests more of everything. More cheese, more mayo, more vegetables, until it becomes difficult to hold her order together. Perhaps this is like life, not even that too much happens, but that everything mixes together at once. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina. Good. Woo! Folks, we're here. We've arrived at the last reader on the last car of the big train, and I can't think of a better poet to take us out, to take us across the finish line. Avacha, please, in honor and respect, we hand the final talking stick to you. What are you gonna leave us with tonight, Avacha?
I'm so grateful. I'm going to read two, if that's okay.
Totally okay.
The first one I'm going to do is in my book, which I'll put in the chat about my book and what have you. It's in Spanish and English. I'm going to just do the English part because I think if I want to do two, I'll run out of time and you folks will got sick of hearing too much of me. But anyway, it's called La Danza del Vampiro, or the Dance of the Vampire. And I don't think we have to go to fiction to talk about vampires or werewolves. We have plenty of them right now, most of whom are in office. But anyway, that's a whole nother subject. La Danza del Vampiro. Dance of the Vampire was him. Again, it was him. Another reincarnation of the same old handsome demon. The same old garbage can wearing a brand new tuxedo again. Sneaky and vicious, gift-wrapped corruption on legs. Still smelling just as bad, but talking sweet and walking elegant. Dude's insanely evil. A wicked, attractive evil dancing on the bed of death. He's here again. A cold-blooded, greedy monster, unfeeling, bloodthirsty, with zero understanding. It was him. Again, the vampire is loose, desperate, and power-tripping. The stupidity of an angry fool. I just back up. The stupidity of a hungry fool woke him up. He got up snatching souls and he's asking you to dance. He needs you to dance. His song, an invitation into the jaws of death. His beautiful song, a sweet sugar-covered song. Another pretty little thing to pull you into his dance. It was him. And he came searching, thirsty for blood. Power crazy and more thirsty than ever before. Hateful, unwanted, and full of twisted desires. It was him. He's the one who ate the tongue of Victor Jara in Chile. It was him having himself a good old time throwing bombs in that church with those 4 little girls in Alabama. It was him dancing in the shadows of the dead in Kosovo and Iraq. It was the same vampire driving the streets of Jasper, Texas, and Cambodia. It was him hanging out in Haiti, Nicaragua, in Uganda and Rwanda, and dancing through the ruins of Granada and Panama, and tearing down the peace again of the indigenous folks in Australia, Chiapas, and Argentina. It was him dancing down the devil's deadly path with the Nazis, encouraging death, destruction, and madness in Palestine, Oklahoma, East Timor, and New York City. You better not go to sleep. I say you better not go to sleep. His occasional disappearance is nothing more than another piece of time to plan his next attack. Be careful. Don't close your eyes. He still needs you to dance. But he'll be making a big mistake if he thinks I'm fool enough to dance to his tune. I don't want anything to do with the dude. I wouldn't even give him a drink of his own poison. For that fiendish monster, I got nothing. Well, you know, maybe. Just a lifetime membership in a blood bank, a distant blood bank, an irresistible blood bank that's a long, long, long way from me. Anyway, and for my book, With Every Step I Take, and let's see, ooh, and it's being reprinted with some new things in it as well. So it's 204 pages. It'll be more than that when the reprint is finished. This one was part of the Black Women's Blues Festival, and it happened a couple of weeks ago in downtown Berkeley. And I wrote this for one of the artists who was paid respect, the wonderfully amazing Sugar Pie de Santo, who from the very beginning, I called her Blue Thunder because I've never seen anybody like her. If you've ever been to the Caribbean, when there's lightning that happens, After the lightning, you see like a blue light in the sky. And that's what I saw the first time I saw her. She was just absolutely amazing. And so this is for her, Blue Thunder. The very first time I saw the phenomenon we call Sugar Pie de Santo, she took her breath away and I was hooked. The amazing Umpalaya Balenton, singer, composer, dancing, doing acrobatic flips at 66 and act. Hell no. This little woman was a presence without precedent, and I was completely under a spell, caught in the strength of her magic. Didn't know how to describe what I just seen and heard. Felt like I'd been hit by some kind of supernatural force. She was an indescribable power. Felt like a musical earthquake. I called her Blue Thunder because there was no other way to describe her, and I wasn't the first or the only one hypnotized by her talents. But upon seeing her show-stopping performance at a talent show, the legendary Johnny Otis immediately signed and recorded with her, gave her the stage name Little Miss Sugar Pie. But she was more than that. New York born, San Francisco grown, Umpalaya Masema Balenton, a small Afro-Filipina powerhouse, not quite 5 feet tall, but sister was tornado strong. I say tornado strong, and the newly renamed Sugar Pie de Santo was a fierce, fearless, creative being impossible to ignore. She was Blue Thunder. A fiery wild child from a musical family that radiated the perfect blend of Tagalog and collard greens. Girl was everything, and the girl was electrifying as a bolt of lightning. And then as a teenager, little Pelaya, and met Etta James, forgive me, who was brought into and lived in the Balenton home like family. It was a time when the Fillmore was on fire, a time when these two little wild girls found their way into every talent show in the Mo and made their way to show their stuff on every stage and every club they could lie their way into. That is until Pelaya's furious father would find her and very loudly take her home. But even the humiliation of those very public tongue lashings couldn't stop her. Girl was like an express train that had lost its brakes, and she knew she couldn't stop. Sugar Pie appeared on more than 20 times at New York's Apollo Theater. And it was at the Apollo that she was spotted by the great James Brown, and like me, he was hooked. She toured with him and became his opening act for the next 2 years. Her prowess as a performer and composer got her a contract at Chicago's Chess Records and made her their highest paid and most productive writer at the time. Sugar Pie has more than 100 compositions to her credit, some of which have been recorded by Fontella Bass, Little Milton, The Whispers, Minnie Riperton, The Dells, Jesse James, and many more, as well as recording 2 historic records with Etta James, one of which was featured in the award-winning movie, The Hurricane. Sugar Pie de Santo is a different kind of blues queen, a blues queen who is as comfortable with rhythm and blues and jazz as she is with the bluest of blues. Some know her by all the awards she's won or the songs she's sung. Some know her by the comedy of her words or her acrobatic stage presence. Some know her as Umpalaya Masema Balenton or Sugar Pie de Santo. I know her as an 85-year-old phenomenon, a seriously brilliant and committed artist, forever running loose, chasing the blues, and I still call her Blue Thunder. Thanks for listening to my words. Come to our poetry series, La Palabra Musical, the music of the word, the 4th Saturday of the month, and I think we've run out of space here on this thing. I'll try and put it in the chat, but I'm honored to be here, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Avacha. That was a beautiful prayer to take us out on, and thank you for that blessing. That is how I see it, as a blessing, and as are you, and as are all of you who have read tonight, as of all of you who supported us through this festival this evening. I'm kind of, and in this, it's one of those rare moments when I'm speechless. I can't believe 20 curators, 120 performers, 1,350 minutes of poetry, fiction, memoir, and speculative, whatever you got, and music, and just thank you, everybody. It's been a hell of a weekend, a hell of a return to the festival.
Paul, can I interrupt and make everyone on mic to give a round of shout out to you and Yusuf?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
Sure, we appreciate it.
Thank you. You did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, there was a lot of feeling of there was excitement and feeling of like things happening and so many words being shared and the pot and just the potential when things are happening, even as we go down. Jack's holding up a copy of my book. Thank you, Jack. I can go back to focusing on my book after this festival now. I didn't want this festival to be about my book. I wanted it to be about this community and the platforms that we pull together to make these things happen. Keep posted to the beastcrawl.org website. It will redirect back to the old site with some new plans and new schemes and new ventures. Yusef is cocking an eyebrow. He's about to burst a vein. I'm about to say a bunch of things. No, I'm not going to do that to you, Yusef. Not tonight. Not tonight. We have lots of other shocking things to talk about, but my heart is full. My heart is full of you guys. And what did you want to say, Yusef?
So the festival.beastcrawl.org will stay up for a while so people can check out what happened during the festival. That'll be up for a while. Beastcrawl.org is the whole thing. We're going to be filling up. Each leg will be showing up on our YouTube channel coming up. So you can replay your favorite parts, and it'll all be navigable because each leg will be separate. It's not going to be like one huge train of video.
So you'll be able to pick and choose and take, and it'll be a lot easier. And with that,